Welcome to Daily Pulse, where we keep your finger on the pulse of the latest breaking news and the news they're keeping from you. Brought to you by the Vigilant Fox and Zeee Media. I'm your host, Zeee. Tonight, sources claim the US will enter Israel's war with Iran. Something isn't adding up about Minnesota assassin Vance Boelter. And is a MAGA Civil War erupting over World War III? Let's get into the Daily Pulse. Over the weekend, we saw the war between Israel and Iran continue to escalate, with a lot of back and forth from both militaries as well as what the West is saying. At this point, there appear to be conflicting statements coming from multiple sources as to whether the US will be directly involved or not. This in from antiwar.com. Sources: US will enter Israel's war with Iran. Sources familiar with the matter have told antiwar.com editorial director Scott Horton that the Trump administration is poised to enter Israel's aggressive war against Iran directly. US airstrikes on Iran could begin as soon as Monday. They are encouraging people to contact the White House and tell them that they don't want the US to enter this disastrous war, which could lead to heavy American casualties at US bases across the Middle East. This is what they are saying. They give a link to the email and phone number there. The US has supported the war by reportedly providing Israel with intelligence and helping intercept Iranian missiles and drones, but so far there have been no direct US attacks on Iran. Iranian officials have warned that Tehran would hit US bases in the region in response to any US strikes. Axios reported on Saturday that Israel is urging the US to join the war since Israel lacks the bunker-busting bombs necessary to do serious damage to Iran's Fordow plant, which is buried deep underground. An Israeli official told Axios that President Trump had previously suggested the US could strike Fordow. Trump himself said on Sunday that it was, quote, possible that the US would get directly involved in the war, which Israel launched early Friday morning with airstrikes across Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu started the war under the pretext of preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon, but it was the consensus of the US intelligence community that there was no evidence Iran was working towards a nuclear weapon, and Tehran made clear that they were ready to make a deal with the US that would significantly lower uranium enrichment levels and increase oversight of its nuclear program in exchange for US sanctions relief. Ali Larijani, an aide to the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has previously said that the one thing that would make Tehran reconsider its prohibition on the development of nuclear weapons would be a US or Israeli attack. Quote, "We are not moving towards," in brackets, nuclear weapons, "but if you do something wrong in the Iranian nuclear issue, you will force Iran to move towards that because it has to defend itself," Larijani said it on April 1st. Quote, "Iran does not want to do this, but it will have no choice," he added. "If at some point you," in brackets the US, "move towards bombing by yourself or through Israel, you will force Iran to make a different decision," end quote. Now, that article did reference a statement from March, just of this year, of US intelligence saying Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. The annual threat assessment said there's no evidence that the Ayatollah has reversed his ban on producing nuclear weapons at the time. And in fact, here is DNI Tulsi Gabbard assuring everyone in March that Iran was not pursuing a nuclear weapon. Take a listen.
Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to US networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
So that was just less than 3 short months ago. What changed? Well, according to Tucker Carlson, there are warmongers who want US involved in the Iran-Israel war, and he's actually named them. He says at some point they will have to all answer for this. As Iranian ballistic missiles rain down on Tel Aviv and US forces are reportedly helping to repel them, Tucker Carlson has called out those who seem to want the US to get involved as warmongers. This is in from Modernity. The Iranian counterstrike came after Israel launched a massive campaign of precision strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and missile sites. Scientists involved with Iranian nuclear work were also reportedly targeted for assassination, along with Iranian Revolutionary Guard leadership. President Trump declared Friday morning that Iran must make a deal immediately before it is completely obliterated. It may already be too late, though, as Israel says red lines have been crossed by Iran targeting civilian areas in Tel Aviv. And we've seen all of that footage all over X on the weekend. Taking to X in response to the escalation, Tucker Carlson wrote, quote, "The real divide isn't between people who support Israel and people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it. Between warmongers and peacemakers," he added. Who are the warmongers? Carlson continued, emphasizing they would include anyone who's calling Donald Trump today to demand airstrikes and other direct US military involvement in a war with Iran. He then went on to name Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Rupert Murdoch, Ike Perlmutter, and Miriam Adelson. Quote, "At some point, they will all have to answer for this, but you should know their names now," Carlson urged. Tucker has, for the past several years now, warned that it would be catastrophic for the US to get dragged into a war involving Iran, highlighting the potential for thousands of US military casualties and economic collapse due to surging oil prices. A very real threat right now. Carlson has argued that fears of Iran's nuclear capabilities are being exaggerated by neoconservative factions and has dismissed claims that Iran poses an imminent threat. He published this monster post earlier last week that has garnered over 7 million views. From Tucker Carlson directly, Mark Levin was at the White House today lobbying for war with Iran. To be clear, Levin has no plans to fight in this or any other war. He's demanding that American troops do it. We need to stop Iran from building nuclear weapons. He and like-minded ideologues in Washington are now arguing. They're just weeks away. If this sounds familiar, it's because the same people have been making the same claim since at least the 1990s. It's a lie. In fact, there is zero credible intelligence that suggests Iran is anywhere near building a bomb or has plans to. None. Anyone who claims otherwise is ignorant or dishonest. If the US government knew Iran was weeks from possessing a nuclear weapon, we'd be at war already. Iran knows this, which is why they aren't building one. Iran also knows it's unwise to give up its weapons program entirely. Muammar Gaddafi tried that and wound up sodomized with a bayonet. As soon as Gaddafi disarmed, NATO killed him. Iran's leaders saw that happen. They learned the obvious lesson. So why is Mark Levin once again hyperventilating about weapons of mass destruction? To distract you from the real goal, which is regime change. Young Americans heading back to the Middle East to topple yet another government. Virtually no one will say this out loud. America's record of overthrowing foreign leaders is so embarrassingly counterproductive that regime change has become a synonym for disaster. Officially, no one supports it. So instead of telling the truth about their motives, they manufacture hysteria. A country like Iran can never have the bomb. They'll nuke Los Angeles. We have to act now. They don't really mean this, Tucker says, and you can tell they don't by what they omit. At least two of Iran's neighbors, both Islamic nations, already have nuclear weapons. That fact should scare the hell out of Mark Levin, yet for some reason he never mentions it. How come? Because it's not the weapons he hates, it's the ideology of the Iranian government, which is why he's lobbying to overthrow it. It goes without saying that there are very few Trump voters who'd support a regime change war in Iran. Donald Trump has argued loudly against reckless lunacy like this. Trump ran for president as a peace candidate. That's what made him different from conventional Republicans. It's why he won. A war with Iran would amount to a profound betrayal of his supporters. It would end his presidency. That may explain why so many of Trump's enemies are advocating for it. And then there's the question of the war itself. Iran may not have nukes, but it has a fearsome arsenal of ballistic missiles, many of which are aimed at US military installations in the Gulf, as well as at our allies and at critical energy infrastructure. The first week of a war with Iran could easily kill thousands of Americans. It could also collapse our economy, as surging oil prices trigger unmanageable inflation. Consider the effects of $30 gasoline. But the second week of the war could be even worse. Iran isn't Iraq or Libya or even North Korea. While it's often described as a rogue state, Iran has powerful allies. It's now part of a global bloc called BRICS, which represents the majority of the world's landmass, population, economy, and military power. Iran has extensive military ties with Russia. It sells the overwhelming majority of its oil exports to China. Iran isn't alone. An attack on Iran could very easily become a world war. We'd lose. None of these are far-fetched predictions. Most of them comport with the Pentagon's own estimates. Many Americans would die during a war with Iran. People like Mark Levin don't seem to care about this. It's not relevant to them. Instead, they insist that Iran give up all uranium enrichment regardless of its purpose. They know perfectly well that Iran will never accept that demand. They'll fight first. And of course, that's the whole point of pushing for it, to box the Trump administration into a regime change war in Iran. The one thing that people like Mark Levin don't want is a peaceful solution to the problem of Iran, despite the obvious benefits to the United States. They denounce anyone who advocates for a deal as a traitor and a bigot. They tell us with a straight face that Long Island native Steve Witkoff is a secret tool of Islamic monarchies. They'll say or do whatever it takes. They have no limits. These are scary people. Pray that Donald Trump ignores them. During his latest podcast this week, Carlson spoke with economist and analyst Jeffrey Sachs, who argued that the US deep state is pushing for catastrophic wars with both Iran and Russia. Sachs expressed confidence that the Trump administration could avoid being drawn into such conflicts, particularly emphasizing the potential for Trump to end the Ukraine war. The interview sparked various reactions, with some praising Sachs' insight, while others criticized him as a globalist advocating for UN-led governance. Well, all of this is clearly dividing MAGA, and many are voicing their strong opposition to this war and US involvement. We'll take a closer look at some of that later in the broadcast in segment 3, but we want to conclude this segment with this. Wars are always accompanied by propaganda, on both sides, by the way. It is how consent is obtained for blowing up innocent civilians who really have nothing to do with the military-industrial complex, bankers, and those pulling the strings at the top who want, in fact, need this war very much. Remember our broadcast with economist and forecaster Martin Armstrong? He said economies are failing. The fake fiat system cannot go on like this for much longer. And when this happens, a war generally follows. It's how they quote, unquote, rebuild. Now, there are many motives for this war, but that is one of them. We will do our best to give you the facts as this continues, free of the propaganda that will definitely be coming our way over the coming days. There are things that you can do to keep yourself fit, healthy, and protected in this world where it seems like attacks on our health come from all sides. Take charge of your health with the Energetic Health Institute, giving you the tools to lead a healthier, more balanced life, brought to you by Dr. Henry Ealy and doctors just like him. True healers and physicians who are making people well successfully outside of Big Pharma. Visit myehialoha.org/#VFox and join their live conferences, Virtual Solutions Summit, engaging Q&A sessions with their first-class, heart-centered professionals, and access all past event replays anytime, anywhere. You can also join the Healing for the Ages community led by Drs. Brian Ardis, Ed Group, Henry Ealy, and Jana Schmidt, and become part of a movement dedicated to building a healthier future where health and healing comes first. All of these invaluable resources are a whopping 30% off when you use code VFOX. Again, that link is myehialoha.org/#VFox with promo code VFOX for 30% off. Several things aren't adding up regarding the tragic shooting of the Minnesota lawmakers who were shot in their homes over the weekend by what authorities are calling a, quote, targeted attack. In case you missed it from the Gateway Pundit, 2 killed, 2 wounded, 2 Democrat Minnesota lawmakers shot in their homes in targeted attack by man dressed as police officer. Tim Walz announced at a press briefing that Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were tragically killed in the shootings. State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were seriously wounded. Walz had previously described the shootings as targeted. The killer has since been identified as Vance Boelter, and there are many anomalies in this story. Authorities initially reported that Boelter had no King's flyers in his vehicle, which is interesting because the mainstream media has since been trying to paint him as a right-winger and a Trump supporter. Yet records indicate both Boelter and his wife may have previously worked for Tim Walz. Then we have the difference in appearance between Boelter and the footage that was released of the shooter in a mask in front of the home. This ex-user rightly asks, how did the mask shave off so much weight and make him so short? Vance Boelter is 6'1" and 220 pounds. The guy in this image is only 1.5 feet above the door handle. That's like 5'6" maybe, not to mention he's fit. Now, we'll say it could very well just be the angle of the camera, but you do look at the difference in this photo here of the shooter allegedly in front of the home, and then this image from Fox News as Boelter was getting arrested. Certainly doesn't seem as trim and fit as the person in that first shot. Then we had the alleged roommate of Boelter coming out and saying that he was a Trump supporter that voted for Trump and listened to InfoWars and would be offended if people called him a Democrat, and that's apparently his roommate there. Democrats were insisting that Boelter lived in a small house with a Papa John's delivery guy, this post says, who swears that he's a Trump supporter, but the reality is that he's married with a family and owns a sprawling property and a very large home. So this is from Fox 9. Take a listen.
We're taking a look at the home of what is believed to be the suspect in now the shooting deaths of state lawmaker Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark.
So if that's his home, which is quite a lovely home actually, why would he be roommating, bunking up with this guy somewhere away from his family? It just doesn't make sense. So now it gets even weirder. Gateway Pundit reports what's going on. Several glaring oddities emerge as alleged hit list of Minnesota assassin Vance Boelter is released. The alleged hit list from the individual who assassinated a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband was released early this morning, and it's raising some serious questions. What is going on here? So they give you a little bit of the history. Let's go straight down to the story getting really odd. So Liz Collin of Alpha News announced that she had acquired Vance Boelter's hit list, and as she notes, more than 60 Democrat leaders appear on it, along with some abortion clinics. She noted the original copy was distributed to law enforcement. So I'm not going to go through every single name on here. God willing, nothing happens to any of these people. We don't want violence ever. But that's the list, apparently. But ex-newsers quickly noted a few glaring details upon perusing the list. First, Senator John Hoffman, who was targeted, his name's nowhere to be found on the quote-unquote hit list. People saying, is this a complete list? Where's Hoffman? Why isn't Hoffman on this list? Someone says notes. Very weird and retyped Vance Boelter hit list, not the original. Why do I say this? Because Senator Hoffman, targeted and shot along with his spouse, doesn't appear on it. So, secondly, former Minnesota Senator Kari Jajic, who died from cancer in December, appears on the list. Why would Boelter target someone that's already dead? Look at this. Tragically died of cancer in December. Why would that person be on the list? Journalist Dustin Grage also noted several other oddities. The list contains the whip counts for the previous Minnesota state legislature, not the current one. Moreover, one person is listed twice, and former Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman is listed despite being out of office for over 2 years. And perhaps an even weirder part is that officers reportedly arrived at the scene before Boelter even entered the home. Take a listen to this.
Before he entered the home, 2 Brooklyn Park police officers arrived at the scene. They too had been dispatched to check on Representative Hortman after learning of the shooting of Senator Hoffman. When they arrived at the scene, they saw Boelter's black SUV parked in the driveway with the emergency lights flashing, and they saw Boelter standing in front of the house several feet from the door. When Boelter saw the officers get out of the car, he drew his weapon and began firing. He rushed into the house through the front door, firing into it. He repeatedly fired into the house, and when he entered, he murdered Representative Hortman and her husband, Mark. The Brooklyn Park police officers fired at Boelter as he rushed into the home, but he escaped into the home and out the back.
So there was a shootout before he even got in. Well, then how did he get in after that? There are just too many things not adding up here. And so now Boelter has been formally charged with bail set at $5 million, 4 counts of second-degree murder with intent not premeditated. The statement of probable cause confirms that he was dressed as a police officer and had identified himself as one, so we're not entirely sure how it's not premeditated, but that's what's been ruled. The bottom line here is that it smells like a huge cover-up of some sort. The problem is that we don't really know by who. He was reportedly registered as a Republican in 2004. The FBI is releasing their statements that people are questioning. The mainstream media on the left is painting him as one thing, the mainstream media on the right is painting him as another, and all the critical thinkers are saying none of you make sense. Kind of reminds us of the predictive programming movie Civil War, where it was really difficult to identify who was who and who was fighting on what side. Remember that? We'll let you know what else comes of this, but for now, the public opinion is we don't know who or what to trust anymore. We want to tell you about Block Trust IRA, bringing access to cryptocurrency wealth to real Americans. Their Animus AI trading platform works 24/7, analyzing market data and executing advanced crypto strategies that are beyond simply buy and hold, helping true Americans build impressive wealth. There's a reason their system was named the #1 crypto technology platform by Bitcoin Magazine from over 1,500 global competitors. Whether you're a teacher, truck driver, small business owner, or retiree watching inflation eat away your 401k, Block Trust IRA's advanced Animus AI gives red-blooded Americans the same advantages as those coastal elites. Right now, their clients are seeing over 250% returns on their investments, and with military-grade security, investments are protected by up to $200 million in insurance. Don't wait, visit dailypulsecrypto.com and find out how they can help you join the financial revolution that's finally giving forgotten Americans access to the greatest crypto wealth opportunity in history. For a limited time, they're offering our viewers up to $2,500 in bonus crypto when you open an account. Crypto created 80,000 new millionaires last year. Why not you next? Visit dailypulsecrypto.com. That's dailypulsecrypto.com, making retirement great again. There appears to be a MAGA civil war of sorts breaking out in response to the potential of US involvement in Israel's war with Iran. And to be clear, we're not saying a physical, literal civil war. We're talking about a division within the conservative movement or the right at levels we really haven't seen before, and it's growing on multiple topics. In the first segment of today's show, we told you we'd look at this closer, so we'd like to start with Tucker Carlson's recent comments. As we discussed, he's been very critical of who he calls the warmongers, releasing a statement in very strong language condemning those who seek war with Iran. And he says there are many of them. What's been interesting to watch is the slow creep of increasing attacks against Tucker over the past few months as he's increased his warnings about a looming war with Iran. He saw it coming. Many did. However, the mainstream media has essentially been running cover for the increased tensions and now conflict in the Middle East throughout this period, while allegations claiming Tucker is an agent of Qatar for speaking out against the coming war kept intensifying. He's addressed this with Steve Bannon today. Take a listen.
Talk about Iraq, because Iraq is some of the same voices at the Fox platform
the Fox platform is just, it's so disgraceful. The one theme that runs longitudinally through the history of Fox is the promotion of wars that don't help the United States. And I don't know
why is that?
It's the owners are committed to that vision. And they are elaborately polite, nice people. You know them, Rupert and Lachlan. I mean, they were sitting here. There's no chance you wouldn't like them. And they're interesting and they're smart and they're just nice. They're super nice. But we disagree fundamentally on that. And the claws really come out at moments like this. You know, most of the time it's, it's fine. But when it really comes down to when it's a question of whether U.S. military power will be exerted on behalf of a foreign country thousands of miles from here, they are all in, and anyone who stands in the way will be destroyed. I don't think it's personal, by the way. I like Tom Cotton. I always like Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss is a very charming person. I like all these people. I always like Mark Levin. I got along with him. I mean, he's blowhard, sad personal life and all that, but I was never mad at Mark Levin or Hannity. I like Hannity.
Brilliant constitutional guy.
Yeah, there are great things about all these people. I don't think they hate me personally. They know I'm not working for Qatar. Though I feel like maybe I should be working for Qatar. What the hell at this point? I've never taken a dime from any foreign country or anybody, actually.
In fact, you just bought out, I think it was announced you bought out your investors.
Yeah, I'm not a money guy. I mean, they're projecting. If you could see my house, I've made more money than I deserve, but I've not gotten rich, and I don't live like a rich person. Everyone knows that. They're money people. That's why they're projecting, or they're people with opaque motives. My motives are, I'm autistic about my whole life. I'm totally happy to tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I want to be transparent, and I think pretty much I am. they're the ones who have these weird, complex motives, and so they project onto everyone else the same. Oh, you're getting paid by somebody. You're not sincere. You don't really think that. You're saying it in order to get clicks. Or it's also dumb. And in my case, untrue. You may dislike my views, and you may have good reason to dislike my views, and I understand that. But they're totally sincere.
Now, whether you agree with Tucker's position or not, you can't really argue that the man has been quite upfront about his views, up against quite a bit of opposition too, by the way. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene is another one of those people who's just put out a scathing message herself. She says, everyone is finding out who are real America First / MAGA and who were fake and just said it because it was popular. Unfortunately, the list of fakes are becoming quite long and expose themselves quickly. Anyone slobbering for the US to become fully involved in the Israel-Iran war is not American First or MAGA. Wishing for murder of innocent people is disgusting. We are sick and tired of foreign wars. All of them. And this one will quickly engulf the Middle East, BRICS, and NATO as countries are required to take a side. Real America First / MAGA wants world peace for all people and doesn't want our military killed and forever injured physically and mentally. We love our US military and love them helping to secure our borders and our cities for the defense of our people and our country, emphasized. They are our friends, spouses, cousins, nieces, nephews, sisters, brothers, sons, and daughters. We have spent trillions in the Middle East, and we have dealt with the aftermath of death, blown apart bodies, never-ending suicides, and disabling PTSD. All because they told us propaganda as to why we must sacrifice our own to defend some other country's borders and some other country's borders. I don't want to see Israel bombed or Iran bombed or Gaza bombed. I don't want to see Ukraine bombed or Russia bombed. And we do not want to be involved or required to pay for any of it. We are $36 trillion in debt and have mountains of our own problems. We have giant planks sticking out of our own eyes while we complain about splinters in others' eyes. Every country involved and all over the world can be happy, successful, and rich if we all work together and seek peace and prosperity. Taking this position is not anti-Semitic. It's rational, sane, and loving toward all people. Taking this position of peace and prosperity for all is not isolationism. It leads to great trade deals and great economies that help all people. It's what many Americans voted for in 2024. America first, America first, America first. That is how we make America great again. Over 5 million views on that one. She then followed up with, last week they said Iran was, quote, days away from a nuclear bomb. Well, it's been, quote, days now, and Iran's nuclear facilities are not destroyed. So does Iran have a nuclear bomb now that it's been days? They've been telling us for decades Iran was only a few years or only a few months and only a few days. However, the truth is more countries than is public have some sort of nuclear capabilities. She says it's not anti-Semitic to ask these questions. It's fair, critical thinking and honest dialogue. After all, innocent people are dying and more will die if the US gets fully involved. And she posted a graphic there of all the different years and claims that have been made about Iran being close to a nuclear bomb, or dating all the way back to 1992. Iran is 3 to 5 years away from nuclear capability. Iran could have a nuclear bomb soon. Iran's racing to develop nuclear weapons, so on and so forth. And popular commentator Jason Whitlock says, I just fell in love. Thank you. Now, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Jason Whitlock aren't alone in their sentiment. All over social media, Americans are voicing their opposition to the US being directly involved in this conflict. We remember quite early on that J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and the likes were speaking quite clearly against any involvement in a conflict with Iran, rather discussing diplomacy. So why is the mainstream media, and more importantly, some people who claim to represent the conservative media, doubling down on the opposite? Now, we don't think it's fair to speculate on specific people's motives, but suffice to say, anyone trying to gin up emotion over the very serious subject of World War III and all of the devastation that it will bring is operating dishonestly. It's clear to see at this point that any further escalation with involvement of other countries in the region would inevitably trigger World War III. Some say it's already started, and some say that it's unlikely that China and Russia will get involved. Well, the reality is China is the primary customer of Iranian oil and reportedly also purchases other sanctioned goods from Iran, such as petrochemicals and metals. Official numbers say that Iranian oil accounts for 16% of China's seaborne crude oil imports, but many claim the number is actually much higher. Then we have Russia's affiliation in trade and relationship with Iran. We have Turkey thrown into the mix and many other countries. Turkey's a major trade partner, and there are many other countries on that list. What we're seeing is a potential trigger between NATO and BRICS, which could, God forbid, trigger World War III, and a nuclear one at that, in the blink of an eye. No one in their right mind wants this. So again, we go back to what we said before, the stark difference between those giving you the facts about how destructive this war would be and why we need diplomacy, and those giving you taglines and propaganda in order to gain your consent to justify moving forward. It's completely disingenuous, and this is one major reason why the MAGA split is happening. Some people are acting like all the waking up people did over the past few years doesn't matter. They can still be propagandized with the same old tactics they always have. And while that's certainly true for some, it no longer is for the majority. The honest people in the room are all screaming diplomacy and de-escalation, and that is the only way forward if we want to survive. Keep that in mind over the coming days and weeks, and we will keep you updated along the way as honestly as humanly possible. Global instability is rising. Wars are escalating all over the world to levels we have not seen in our lifetimes. One of the first things to get targeted in wartime situations is communication systems. Whether through an EMP, cyber attacks, or kinetic warfare, our communication systems are at risk. Protect you and your loved ones with encrypted satellite communication today, making sure that no matter what happens, you'll be able to stay in contact with your friends, family, emergency services through a satellite phone. Our friends at sat123.com/pulse are offering the most cost-effective option for you to secure your communications today. Get the Immersat satellite phone fully encrypted by the satellite phone store with 150 minutes of talk time per month for just $89.95 today. This is the one that I personally have. This package comes with both rollover minutes and damage insurance. Your purchase will also come with a free Faraday bag to protect your phone in case of an EMP or similar attack. Or you can opt for a bivy stick. This is mine. This device will let you SMS your loved ones through the satellite network by connecting to your existing cell phone via Bluetooth. They're offering this exclusively to our viewers at the lowest possible price, just $45.99 per month, which includes 150 credits. These prices are the lowest they've ever been because we and our friends at sat123.com/pulse understand how urgent this situation is. This is not just a sales pitch. We are in extremely serious times. Militaries all over the world use the satellite network for communications, so it will be our last line of defense. Their service and shipping is worldwide, so no matter where you are, these devices will work. Don't delay. Go to sat123.com/pulse today and get your backup communications in order. Use code PULSE, which will also give you access to 10% off site-wide, so make sure to use that code PULSE at the checkout. That link again is sat123.com/pulse. That's sat123.com/pulse. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you haven't noticed, we are committed to telling you the truth, no matter what. You can catch us doing that every single weeknight at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's every weekday. Daily Pulse, where we keep your finger on the pulse of the latest breaking news and the news they're keeping from you. You can support us to stay independent by shopping directly with our sponsors who make this show possible. Their links are in the description below. You can also like, share, and give us your thoughts and comments on the broadcast. Make sure to follow Vigilant Fox on X at Vigilant Fox, as well as Substack to stay up to date with the latest breaking news. Follow Zeee Media on Rumble, where we also air this show each weekday and post our other deep dives. Follow at ZEE_media on X, and as always, all of our content is also on zeemedia.com. Join us every weeknight at 7 p.m. Eastern. Tell everyone about it, and as always, keep your finger on the pulse with the Daily Pulse. Good night.